DistroKid now also has a motherfucking app.
The DistroKid app is available for iOS and Android.
You can now get an additional 30% off if you go to distrokid.com/VIP/cult. That's distrokid.com/VIP/cult.
Or you can get it in the App Store.
Fuck. All right, we're rolling.
Rolling.
Planet B
Presents
Cult and Culture Podcast.
Welcome to episode 48 of the Cult and Culture Podcast. I'm Justin Pearson.
And I'm Luke Henshaw.
All right.
Where to begin?
This one's interesting. A longtime friend of mine, Aaron Montaigne, who I think I met around age 14. I grew up with his band Heroin and my band Struggle, playing many shows together, and then throughout the years playing with and following his musical career, primarily with Antioch, later being released on 31G, and then re-releasing Into the Line, one of his other bands that Struggle toured with, and so on and so forth. And he is a prolific human being. He has a very interesting musical resume. But there's a bit of controversy around him and who he is, and so we were kind of on the fence about how to approach this and if we would get any kickback or kickback, is that the right word?
Backlash? Yeah.
Backlash, whatever, on us for having him as a guest. And I don't know. There's two accusations. Is that the right word?
We know what you mean.
There's two issues that I think surrounded him recently, and which is kind of weird. One was Southern Lord reissued the Heroin discography, and somehow a old photo of Heroin, the band, surfaced, and you could see a tattoo that Aaron had on his leg, which originated with, like, in the realms of, like, the black arts, I guess, in the world of, like, Satanism and stuff like that. And of course it was co-opted by neo-Nazis or by Nazis at some point in history. And I guess similar to the swastika maybe, and how it became more known for the later, I guess, cultural theft of the imagery or of the symbols. So, it was weird because when that came out, everyone was like, "What's up with Aaron? He's a fucking Nazi." And I was like, "Dude, this is crazy. He's not, as far as I know." And that it was just like weird. So I hit him up, and he's like, "What the fuck, man? You know me?" Like, no. And then I also know, that he got into, I don't know if we want to call it Satanism, but like the dark arts, witchcraft and stuff like that through his mother. And I think he takes it very seriously, and I believe him. I don't think he's a Nazi. I don't think he's a neo-Nazi in any way. So there's that. So if you have a problem with it, sorry. The other thing is the 2013 Vice interview that he did with a friend of mine, where he talks about a lot of stuff. Talks about his involvement in his war in Afghanistan, being a service person in the military. And so I realized, like, 2013 was a little bit different landscape, and I think, like, maybe people were a little bit less sensitive or precious, or I don't know. And also I know when you do interviews with, like, your homie, you can kind of be a little bit more candid and not really articulate yourself for a wider audience. And so where I can see the interview with Vice was a little bit jarring by some of the language that he used. I don't know. So that's been an issue, and I think that we have a strong anti-war and anti-military stance, but we also live in San Diego, which is a predominantly military city. A lot of people we know are in the military. The chances of people getting in the military at an early age is fucking very real. Mm-hmm. I mean, I remember going to Mission Bay High School, and there was recruiters there at lunchtime every day trying to get kids to sign up for the military. So we dive into all this in the podcast.
Yeah,
and
you'll hear it.
I just think, like, I just want to say, I respect Aaron as a human being. I don't agree with his choices of being in the military. I don't align myself with the U.S. military whatsoever. I do not align myself with war, genocide, anything of the nature that I think might be tied to his involvement in the military. So with that being said, I think that, like, he should have a platform to speak, and I think he should be able to be heard. And I think that even if wherever you fall on this subject of war, or the military, or specific, I don't know, tattoos or whatever, I think, like, you can gain from the knowledge of having a healthy conversation. I don't know. Everyone's so polarized and just, like, ready to fucking cancel you, and I don't think that that's warranted for Aaron. Anyhow.
Yeah, you listen to it.
Yeah, and if you want to cancel our podcast, go for it. But I think our podcast guest, the, like, whole collection of people, speaks for itself. You should know where we stand. I think our involvement in music and art makes it pretty clear where we stand on this. So anyhow, I just want to say that, and I hope you get something from this podcast. You don't have to like Aaron, but I do, and I completely do not like the U.S. military or war or things of that nature. So anyhow, we're going to dive into this.
Yep.
Thank you very much. We will see you on the other side, and hopefully you're still going to be around.
My name is Aaron Montaigne.
And
I'm an artist.
okay.
Yeah.
Cool. That's the title.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I play music and make stuff, and I feel like living life is an art of its own, and, you know, I'm an artist.
That's cool. I always have a problem. I want to call myself an artist because I'm not musically trained. I most of the time don't know what I'm doing, but I always am like, people looking at me like I'm a total douchebag by saying that, but it sounds cool when you say it.
A little bit, yeah.
I mean, I feel the same way. It's like, you know,
I'm an artist, but like you fucking creative, interesting, oddball, which is a good thing, like weird.
I can't say it with confidence. I don't think you just did. So.
Well, it's like I'll be in a museum and I'll see a painting I like or something, and my instinct is, how did they make that? I could probably make that, and I feel like that's an artistic, like, eye kind of thing.
That's
Or
great.
no.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go back. Let's start at the beginning of time. We met through punk and hardcore in San Diego. I feel like I was like maybe 13 or 14 years old. Neither of us were in bands yet.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, we definitely, you and I grew up in the same scene. You
Yeah.
wanna call it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we, like I was saying earlier, I remember seeing you and Jose Palafox wearing leather jackets,
Yeah.
Sex Pistols swag, and that was kind of my mentality at the time too. I was like, entry level punks going to our first shows. You know what I mean? Like,
But you always like seemed like on the sort of straight edge hardcore DC tip, where Jose and I were like, I don't know, crusty, whatever, Mohawk stuff.
yeah, I guess so. Not back at that point. I was still wearing Misfits t-shirts. And
Yeah.
stuff. But yeah, the people that I grew up with in North County, it was they were older, Scott and the Heroin guys, and they were older, and more refined, I guess, in their taste in music. They'd already gone through that, and so I kind of learned a lot from them, and a lot of it was definitely like more obscure bands to me at the time.
Yeah,
you know what I mean,
like,
DC stuff.
No, like GBH, Digalo Abortions, kind of like get your shit together, Swizz kind of stuff.
Totally, yeah. Articles of Faith,
Yeah, okay.
Swizz,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Which is all of it's great. Both. But so, I remember like us being friends and you playing in Heroin, and I thought that was so wild how that happened, and also like I would love to know about that, how that band came about, because I seen Heroin with Matt Anderson played drums, and so all of a sudden he was singing and you were drumming, and I was like, what the fuck, my friend's playing drums in the band, and you had the most interesting style of drumming.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't that good at first at all, and I never really was good at playing drums. I like to show off a lot. I think that was like
Performer.
Yeah, I like to perform,
Which no one did at the time. I think it's like the kind of caliber of bands. Everyone was like trying really hard, and you were just like, I don't give a fuck, and it was sloppy and it was cool.
Yeah.
And
so that the whole Heroin thing. So I went to Torrey Pines High School, which is a high school in Del Mar. So the Heroin started pretty much in Del Mar. The Crash Worship House was up there, and I think Scott kind of hung around there, the guitar player. But everyone, we all went to Torrey Pines for the most part. Chad Jackson, he was the original singer when Matt was playing drums. He was a pro skateboarder guy.
Swindle, right? Is that
Swindle skateboards,
yeah.
And so I was going and seeing them during that era, and I thought they were great. There was a song that Heroin played called Granite, which had this like weird kind of Greg Ginn guitar tone, I remember, and they were like the coolest band.
Yeah.
Playing in garages, literally playing in garages at the time. And they were all a couple years old, but I befriended Ron Johnson, who was the bass player. And we kind of were hanging around in high school. He was a year or two older than me. But back then, a year or two was like
a lot.
A decade.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of like at school with him, kind of like teaching me what he thought was cool and stuff. And I think they wanted to take the band to a more serious direction because Chad was kind of a fuck up, drunk punk kind of thing.
Totally, yeah.
And the band was getting some like not notoriety, but like it was definitely like evolving. And so Matt wanted to become the singer. I guess they asked me to play drums, and I just started playing drums maybe like 6 months before that.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like I asked Mom for a drum set, and I think I had a kit but no cymbals, so I was like pretending there were cymbals there when I was learning how to play. Playing to like Sex Pistols songs, stuff like that, Misfits.
So you would air the cymbal?
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. I would just pretend they were there.
Because they don't come with the kit.
One, my mom couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
She afforded the drums, and the deal was like, yo, you're gonna graduate high school if I buy you these, and you're gonna be in every band class. This was junior high, the last year of junior high. So I started playing in band in junior high, like marching band, all that stuff. That was kind of the deal. Like you're gonna be in the band. So yeah, all through junior high and high school, I was playing in the band.
Wow.
Jazz, all that stuff.
Whoa.
Which is weird that I never got good at drums because I was playing drums every day. But yeah. Anyway, so I joined the band and kind of had to like get up to speed like very quickly, and then you started playing like real shows. We put out a 7-inch, which is funny. That first 7-inch that's on Gravity / Final Communications here in San Diego. The drawing on the cover is of my house because we used to practice there.
Whoa.
So any of you Heroin heads, that's
crazy.
My
Wow.
childhood home.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then so it kind of took off from there, and then that's probably around the time where Struggle started, and we were all playing shows together.
Yeah. It's not. This always like was. I really loved Heroin, and mainly you and Matt were the people that I was closest with. But I remember Scott Bartoloni's telling us that we were terrible Struggle and we should break up. And
he told you that?
Yeah, it was so bad. And it was funny because I was like. He was like, and then he tried to like backtrack, and he's like, "There's no good bands in San Diego," and we're like, oh, "What? There's tons." And he's like, "Yeah, Force Down, Into the Line, Heroin, and then whatever." It was like all the bands that he was in.
Bands he's in.
And I was like, "Oh, whatever." But I mean, Scott's fine. But
yeah.
But I was like, "Yeah, that's cool." So, but Heroin was always such a unique thing, and I feel like maybe it was. We talk about this a lot, but like about San Diego, like where we don't have the ability to do the obvious thing. We have to kind of take from here and there and make something unique. Like we ended up with Crash Worship and Drive Like Jehu and Unbroken and whatever. All the weird shit comes out of here, and so I feel like Heroin was part of that because it was a very unique band, and that existed for many reasons, like what I just stated. So to shift into this next step, I guess it's not too big of a jump, but would be like Antioch Arrow. Like that fucked me up a lot, and it fucked up a lot of people because I don't know. I know where like the Antioch Arrow seeds came from, but it hit hard, and it was like so. It was very innovative and just very poignant for what's happening in hardcore, because we were like used to like ebullition and that kind of like really rigid, serious, hardcore, downcast, struggle kind of stuff. And then Antioch Arrow came, and like that's maybe where your artist label maybe came into play.
Yeah, 100%.
Because you were fucking going for it.
Well, yeah, I mean, so when we were growing up, you and I, definitely like the straight edge hardcore scene was, that was the most prevalent, and we were all straight edge, by de facto, you know what I mean? We all like, none of us like, I mean, do you remember people like getting fucked up and stuff at shows? I never did.
Jose was all the time.
He was? Okay, yeah. So me, like, no one was drinking, no one was like, it was a faux pas to like go to a show, I feel like, back then, and having your friends like getting fucked up. Anyway, but that music, was great, and I love all that music, the straight edge, Chain.
Yeah,
and
Chain was the best
stuff.
straight edge band, in my opinion.
I mean, that's all the stuff we grew up on, and I still listen to all that stuff. Yeah, I feel like for me, the DC thing, well, and also like, I started listening to like the Birthday Party pretty early and stuff like that. And I feel like that kind of like bled into sort of like Antioch Arrow, you know what I mean? When Antioch Arrow first started, it was like, me and Mac were like, yeah, let's do a band, and I want to sing, because that Fury record came out, which is the guys from Swizz and Chris Thompson singing, and his vocal delivery was like so fire. I was like, you know what I mean? It inspired me to like want to like kind of be like him or whatever, copy him. So being back, we we're like, yeah, let's start a band. He was playing bass. He had a sick Rickenbacker, and we enlisted Ron Avia, aka Ron Anarchy, to play drums, because he actually played a couple shows in Heroin before I joined, but he was like too good, I guess.
Insane.
Yeah, he was too good of a drummer, because he was like a living drum machine. And so I kind of felt bad about that I kind of like poached his gig, you know what I mean? And he was a rad drummer, and he didn't have a job, so
and also a bit older.
Yeah, he was definitely 5 years older, maybe 4. I don't want to age him too much, but yeah. And then Jeff Winterberg, and I think Aaron Richards. Is it Richards or is it Rickards?
It's Richards.
I feel like he like corrected me recently when I said something. He's like, it's Rickards. Maybe he changed it. I don't know.
Maybe I lived with him, and it was Aaron Richards.
Okay, I thought so too.
Yeah.
Anyways, Mac's dad had money. He started Airwalk. So they had a couple houses. So the house that they weren't living in, we just kind of posted up, and we had the free reign of the house to make as much noise as we wanted. It was a fucking mansion, you know what I mean?
Wow.
And it was really easy just to like write those songs, and it was fun for me to like, do my art for, you know what I mean, the flyers or whatever, and writing lyrics. And definitely like I was coming less from the straight edge hardcore perspective, or like a political perspective, like which you were coming from, I feel like, was more like romantic or something, you know what I mean? I feel like maybe I was like listening to too many Discord records at the time, but definitely like that was my like foot, and it always has been, to be honest, and still is, you know what I mean? Like that's kind of like where I get my art from, is romance, and the romance of life and love affairs, whatever, you know what I mean? So that's how that started. And as far as like what we were trying to do, I mean, man, we were listening to like weird bands like Bastro, like I said, Birthday Party, but we were still trying to do hardcore, I guess. We we never really talked about it. It's just like they'd write a song, I'd be like kind of like walking around the mansion, just sort of like kind of thinking of lyrics, but also just kind of like looking at all their stuff, you know what I mean? Like there's like pictures of like his family with like celebrities and stuff. Anyways, that's how Antioch Arrow kind of started from there.
Which was like a great bunch of people. I mean, I love Aaron and Jeff, but Ron, or Maximilian as he says, he changed his name. I remember like seeing you guys play, and you were obviously like, I didn't know anybody at the time, but except you. But seeing Max play, I was just like, holy shit, where did this fucking guy come from? Kind of like Mario Rubalcaba, sort of. Like you're just like, dude, the level technical ability that he had as a drummer was made Antioch Arrow better than almost all the other bands.
I mean, yeah, I guess. I mean, you saw us live. We were pretty untamed live. I mean, if you didn't like know that there was a song there, it didn't seem like it. Like
Yeah.
if I see the old videos from like Antioch gigs, it's like it just sounds like a wall of sound.
Yeah.
But then there's a break.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
And it comes right back
Yeah.
in. So it's like there's obviously like, some format happening there, but it's kind of hard to tell through it all a little
So
bit.
I mean, that's what records are for, and then the live
Right.
performance is the performance. It should be something. I remember seeing it and having a bit of fear, in a good way. Like, whoa, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like someone's. I remember seeing you at the Food Not Bombs place downtown, and Jeff cracked you in the head, and you were bleeding everywhere, and I was like, oh my god, and it was so like cool and romantic, like all the things that you
Yeah.
like. It was like wild that was like the
I just wanted to go off like harder than
everybody.
any other band. I
Yeah.
just want to be like, let's fucking go off
yeah.
as hard as
Harder
fuck.
than
and
anything.
like, you know what I mean? Like if it's sloppy, who cares? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's kind of like where my mentality was at back then.
And no one
it
did
is.
it. Yeah, no one.
I don't know. I mean,
Maybe
Trying
the
to-
birthday party did, but we didn't have a reference for
No.
that,
yeah, I'm trying to think of like, I feel like, like Inside Out, I feel like went off pretty fucking hard. Trying to think of like the bands that back then, like Jesus Lizard wasn't around yet, but yeah, I'm trying to think of
Yeah.
like what bands like we, you know what I mean, that went off super hard.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
we definitely like we win that award, I think, or at the time.
But and then you had all this mysticism, like people just couldn't wrap their heads around what the fuck was going on. I think that was really cool, and not, again, like a lot of times when we look back and with retrospect, we're like, we didn't know what we were doing. I don't know if you guys planned it out, but like to me, it just seemed like very unique and bizarre, and I couldn't figure it out, and that had another level of being interesting to me.
I mean, I credit Mac, man. He wrote all the songs. I wrote the lyrics, obviously, but like, yeah, he wrote all the songs, and he was very, he's probably the most eccentric person that I know.
Very much.
Has always been, and
Yeah.
is even more now. And so all of that psychosis was definitely by design via Mac Man.
Which is crazy too, because if we want to pick him apart, like him and Maximilian went and did Get Hustle, which even became like less of an obtainable band in the mainstream. I think they were great, and 31G put out a bunch of the records, but like it was like even more harder for people to wrap their heads around it than Antioch Arrow. Like they just went way out there, which I think is cool. I like that. I don't think enough people.
Yeah,
do it.
I mean, and going back to the San Diego scene at the time in the the early '90s, and this is different now. I work in the music venues and music industry stuff these days, and it's like back then, definitely like being unique and original was the most important thing when doing a band. And I feel like all of our bands, you know what I mean, that was the thing. Like you wanted to be different.
Yeah.
Whereas like I feel like now it's like someone's like, oh, I want to do like sound like this band, or I want to do that. Whereas I feel like back then it's like, let's do something totally different, because you got to stand out from like my homies bands or whatever,
But I think maybe back then was different because we were maybe younger and more naive in a sort of beautiful way, where like now we're not but like people in general are maybe wondering what's going to be successful, and that's the wrong reason to create art.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we're talking pre-Nirvana here, so there was no success in punk. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I mean, there was like the Sex Pistols and stuff like that, but that happened like decades earlier.
But even like now, that's like a pop band,
right.
musically at least. I mean, they
Right.
looked cool, but
Yeah. Yeah, so there was no success. So yeah, it wasn't even a factor. It was just fucking fun, and like you meeting other people that are like into the same shit,
Yeah. But and also like, I mean, your whole camp was cool. Like the Heroin record coming out in Vermiform made all of these, because Born Against was like the coolest punk band, of the time. And you put out a record on Sam's label. Like that's fucking really rad. And then just, again, owning it with the Antioch Arrow stuff. It just changed the trajectory of stuff. There was also this thing where like, I remember, I don't know if it was Kent McClard, but it was Heart Attack or Ebullition were like very much against what Antioch Arrow was, and I was like, oh, that's crazy, because I feel like they're such
Kent McClard fucking hated this,
which
dude.
is insane. And
I think it was like one of those like rivalries that benefited both sides a little bit. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Because he would still write about us.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, and so the thing was, I think with him was, so Ulysses came through, and they all looked good in their suits and everything. And so remember, and everyone started dressing good.
Yeah.
And so we were dressing good,
Yeah.
and he thought that was like the poison of like the hardcore scene was
Yeah.
like trying to be fashionable or something. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? And
not
he hated
not
that.
like white people with dreads or the crust scene,
right, which
or
was
like-
kind of
yeah.
his scene, dude.
Yeah,
the Downcast
Yeah,
boys and
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Anyways, so yeah, that was a thing too that kind of came into play for sure. The white belts and the mod look or whatever.
Yeah. The mod thing was wild. It took over.
Yeah,
Yeah. Which was cool. It's like, I
Yeah.
mean, but it's no different than a mohawk and a leather jacket. It's like you're gonna have tight pants and ride a vest, but it's sort of this. It's like it's
Right.
a look. You're weird. You're.
But if you remember, like the hardcore scene back then, it was like totally like streetwear. You know what I mean? It's like the kids that look like little kids. You know what I mean? Like all these like you go to like these like hardcore shows and everyone's wearing like fucking like those shorts that are like kind of go down really low and big t-shirts and a hat. You know what I mean? And
it's
so-
a look. There's always a look. You can
look.
go in the mall and you'd be like, oh, that's a crust punk, or that's a mod,
Yeah.
or that's a straight edge person, or whatever.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that kind of shit's pretty wild. The identity thing, because I think that's important too. Like to be able to see, to be able to see like someone in public that's part of the community, like.
Wait, sorry. I
Like
was
code, like if you would like now, or if you go through let's say like you're walking through an airport and someone has a crash shirt on, you're like, okay, I know what's going on there. Like you get it. It's like it's a secret code or something. And I feel like we were just trying to identify with some kind of code.
Yeah.
Anyhow, that's how I saw it.
Right.
So the Antioch Hero thing was wild, and then it had we had this shift in San Diego with heroin, the drug. And
Right.
that fucked up a lot of shit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I kind of left. I kind of moved away, like right when I like turned 18. I feel like I saw the beginning of it. I saw because like I said before, like drugs and drinking in my circle of friends, like that was not a thing. You know what I mean? It wasn't cool. You know what I mean? But then I saw maybe a few months before I moved away, I saw like I think I did acid once and like. Crescenta, our mutual friend, got mad at me, and you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And then I saw like other people doing kind of like meth or something, and but I moved away before the heroin thing happened. But I would hear about it and stuff. Matt Anderson from Gravity, and then other people. But I kind of missed that.
where'd you go?
I was living in DC.
Okay.
Yeah, I was living in DC at the time. Well, I went to DC to like visit, and I just kind of ended up staying. You know what I mean? But I know that it definitely infected like a lot of the San Diego scene.
Bad.
Okay.
It was pretty bad. I mean, yeah, it was interesting. For me, it was always interesting because I would see a lot of my friends get hooked on heroin, and I was like, I can't even afford that. I can't afford rehab or the drug, So I lucked out.
Well, if you do it once, I think you'll find a way to afford it.
Of course, I knew that I wouldn't be able to though.
They're
and-
hustlers.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah, I got into drugs a little bit later for sure. But
In San Diego or in DC?
no, I was living in actually New York, and actually it's a funny story. You know who got me heroin for the first time was Ryan Noel from San Diego, Clickataticatawi.
Yeah.
He had been on drugs, I think, from here
Yeah.
during the era that you're talking about, and he had moved to New York, and so of course I'm gonna hang out with my friend from San Diego in New York, and he kind of like showed me where to buy it, and like. Yeah, that was kind of like how I got into drugs was in New York via Ryan Noel. San Diego.
And you didn't come back like to San Diego for a minute though, still, right?
No. I lived here for a year, a few years later. But yeah, I kind of moved away, and you know what I mean. I wanted the big city and the big lights kind of thing. Where I love San Diego, but it was a little slow for me.
Let me interject this one little thing. So somehow you started a band that was Get Hustle, right? Mm-hmm. With like Mackie Osborne was in it.
Yeah, Mackie Osborne, Maximilian, Myra Power, Slant Six.
Yeah. That was in L.A. or San Diego?
That was in L.A. So I was living in D.C., moved to L.A. to do that band because we were when I was living in D.C. we were recording that last Antioch Era record.
Okay.
That wasn't on Gravity, so I was kind of coming out to L.A., flying out for that.
Which was like at the Beastie Boys.
Yeah, the
studio.
BC studio.
That's all fucking crazy too. Just that little tidbit is insane.
Yeah, I know. They were recording their record during the day. The one with the
It's Paul's Boutique, right?
No,
No,
the
that
other one,
was-
the Sabotage.
Yeah.
Oh, that
Ill
one?
communication.
Oh
yeah.
Oh.
So like, and they were like punks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, we'd go in at night and like, they had a sick studio. There's like a fucking ramp in there.
Yeah.
Like all these old. That's kind of before the synth craze. So it was like all these like old synths and stuff. Like
Which
that
is
we were
which
fucking
made
around
its
with.
way onto the Antioch Arrow record, right?
Yeah. No, we played on a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if.
I think a lot of that was
Beasties-
Money Mark's keyboards.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
What's that?
He was the guy who did a lot of the
Oh, okay.
keys
Yeah.
for.
Okay, word. Yeah. Sorry, Money. We used your
I think
synths.
I think that's him. But, yeah.
Okay, word. Yeah, I mean, we just kind of had like free reign of the place,
Mm-hmm.
and it was we record all night. That record was like a really weird record. Not to go jump back into the Antioch thing, but you know, we had this like the first two records were very, you know, that I guess you call it screamo now.
Yeah.
And then that third record was like kind of goth,
Yeah.
hardcore or something, and people fucking hated it.
Yeah, they did.
People were so
Yeah.
bummed.
But
by
now
it.
it's everybody's favorite.
Now people
Yeah.
are like, oh yeah, I hated that record, but now it's like I love it.
Yeah.
Which we like kind of wrote that in the studio, which is not a good idea.
Yeah.
It's really I can't leave me listen to it. It's really disjointed and like there's so many flaws in it. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
just like it's like nails on the chalkboard to me or something.
Yeah,
But
I love
is
it.
what is.
But when I listen to it, I feel like maybe some of the songs aren't fleshed out. Like they don't seem like songs. You know,
Yeah.
like it's like, oh, there's a weird part, and that's the song.
Yeah.
But I think it's great, and I think it was part of the trajectory of where things were heading.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah.
Because then, like, a bunch of like, then it was like, there's like synths happening and stuff.
Then
you
the
know what I mean?
VSS and all that shit.
VSS, yeah.
Locust. Yeah.
Yeah.
It-
But I feel like those bands, Locust and VSS, kind of did it right, or how I would have liked to have done it. Maybe not McMahon, but that's kind of how. Because I wanted to be using synths on the second. There's a little bit on the second.
there
record,
is, yeah.
But I was like, let's do more of that, and Mac's like, oh, we'll wait till the next record. I was like, let's do it now, dude. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I like, but yeah.
Not to keep going back too far, but like the second record recorded with Jeff Forrest.
That's the double time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
No,
like,
we
that
did
was-
a lot of
yeah.
stuff. I mean, Antioch and Heroin did most of our stuff.
Yeah.
There.
That's a
in Santee.
Yeah, and he was kind of just like whatever you want. And just,
Yeah,
you
he
know,
was the
do whatever fuck you
the
want.
Don
Yeah.
Zientara of San Diego. Like I feel like all the like kind of band because he was affordable.
He recorded Struggle, Swing Kids, Unbroken.
Yeah.
All the Gravity stuff. Like
Yeah.
everybody was going there. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, he was the guy.
Yeah, he's good. He's cool.
But it would be a thing where like, all right, we're doing a 7-inch today or whatever. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's like you had to like go in and like do everything.
Oh yeah, it's all
in one day.
it's all on tape and no editing and
Yeah,
whatever.
no, there's
yeah.
like no like the only thing you're overdubbing is vocals.
yeah.
I think even that, you know.
I mean,
right?
you could overdub guitar and stuff, but like it was 16 track I think at that time or 24 maybe, but yeah, it was like there was no editing of anything.
You gotta get it right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is
those days are over.
There's so many records I've done with him. I'm like, dude, everybody fucked up everything on this. You know,
Yeah.
It just drives me crazy. But anyhow,
gives a character.
it
He
does.
retired.
Recently. Yeah, he moved to Italy or something.
Oh, wow.
He moved somewhere. Okay, so you came or you were in New York. You got linked up with Ryan and started doing Heroin.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's. I'm trying to think of my life. It's been so long now. L.A. Lived in San Diego for a minute. Back to D.C. I started a band in D.C. called Taro Bolero. Band I don't love talking about. Not my favorite thing.
Huh.
But
Why is that?
when I think about like that time or the music, it's like it's corny as fuck. Like you know what I mean? Everything's in 3/4. It's like Calliope type jams. I mean, I was trying to do like the Doors. I was trying to do the Doors.
okay, uh-huh.
You know what I mean?
I
And-
had like it seemed like a sort of Bad Seeds vibe. Like
yeah,
maybe,
for sure.
you know?
Yeah, definitely influenced. But yeah, that didn't like. Looking back, I'm like, ugh, I wish I would have skipped that that part of my life. But anyway, so I toured on that. We did a tour, which was cool.
I saw you played at my house.
Oh yeah, that's right.
yeah.
That was a killer gig.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And it was fun. It was fun to do that tour for sure. You know what I mean? It was still like very energetic, and you know what I mean. Like, I remember though in New Orleans we left Paul, who I think maybe you know. He was the bass player. He lived here in San Diego for a while. Him and the drummer Vito. So the bass player and the
Vito. Vito was from the Rapture. right?
No, different.
Oh,
Vito.
different. Okay.
Yeah, Despito's DC. So this is before I got into drugs. So
Okay.
this is still DC era. But they were using fucking heroin, and I was like, no drugs in the van. I'm still to this day really paranoid about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
No drugs in the van. And we were in New Orleans, and I totally discovered their like drug stash, and I threw it away. And they were so mad that they like stole all me and my friend Jimmy Chen's suits and sold them.
Oh yeah,
So
you guys had really nice suits.
yeah. All vintage fucking polyester shit. And so we left them in New Orleans.
Oh shit.
We were like, peace, guys.
Yeah.
So that was the end of that.
Wow. That's so funny because to me, I thought you guys were all on drugs. Like,
Oh, yeah?
I assumed
No.
you were fucked up. Like,
Yeah, no,
already.
I was pre-drugs.
Wow. Yeah.
Maybe drinking or something then, but I can't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, so that's there. And then I lived in New York for a couple years. And what did I do? I was like playing in a couple weird little things.
So wait, you were also in Crash Worship at some point.
Yes.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, that's when I was in New York. It was kind of their last hurrah. They got offered a gig with the Master Musicians of Jijuka in San Francisco. So that was kind of started. They're like, we need another drummer because Marcus Wolf was not down for whatever reason. And he was sort of just like the low end kind of drums. Anyone who doesn't know about Crash Worship, Crash Worship was like this like weird, amazing psychedelic pagan experience.
Yeah.
I mean, we both grew up seeing these shows, and they're fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
and
Pre-rave
amazing.
scene.
Pre-rave, pre-Burning Man.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But like, and definitely more scary.
Oh,
but
fuck yeah.
But kind of that weird satanic hippie, fucking pig's blood.
Oh yeah.
Fireworks,
Acid.
fire, nudity.
Yeah.
Like it was. So when they asked me like, "Hey, do you like Jason Lane?" and they were like, "You want Ryan Jenks?" We're like, you want to? I was like, "Hell yeah!" You know, and I grew up seeing this band.
Yeah. Well, oddly, Jose was in it for a minute too.
He was? Okay.
Yeah. So So I was like, oh, cool. He was part of the ADRV drum corps. They played on the Struggle record. So but not. Yeah. So anyhow, it makes sense that you would like get all the cool people to play drums.
Yeah, and I ended up doing like a little tour with Crash. This is when I was in New York. I was flying out for that. A little tour with Crash Worship. We played Burning Man. Just sick.
Really?
Yeah.
Like at the real Burning Man. Was
Burning
like the
Man.
first one?
No, it was like man, I want to say 97 or 98. I think 98 or 98 or
Before
something.
it was like on the map as a thing.
100%. Yeah, it was still like some freak fest.
Yeah.
Kind of shit. And that was really cool. It was cool to like, because you know when you go see Crash Worship, it's like it's really psychedelic, and you don't really know is there songs, what's happening. There's totally songs there. Like so, learning to play the parts, it's like there's actually songs there and stuff, which is hard to tell back then live. But that was a really, really, really fun experience because it was just like you'd have to like look for. Simon was the leader. And you'd have to look for like cues, like little
like
subtle
a conductor.
cues for changes or, he kind of just let it, and so it was really fun and an interesting musical experience. You know what I mean? The dynamics, it was all really subtle, but it's all there.
Yeah.
But like going to see, you just feel like there's an explosion happening, and there's like watermelons right here, and there's a firework here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
the watermelons always had acid.
Yeah.
It was like people are eating it, thinking it's fruit, and then everyone is tripping balls.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. So yeah, Brian Nichols. Yeah, Brian Nichols. He was kind of the guy in charge of all of the like crazy shit.
Yeah.
Like the platters with like painted nude girls
Yeah.
with the wine and the grapes and all that stuff. That was all Brian. He was a fucking genius. Anyways,
Which goes into like the theatrical artist side.
for sure, yeah. And all their like, I wish Crash Worship had gotten like kind of bigger. More people would have known about that because. Yeah, I feel like I was going through some stuff the other day, and I found some old Crash Worship stickers that I had, and they're fucking cool, dude. Like to this day, like that art like stands the test of time. For sure.
That band's pretty wild. They made a CD, I think, at one point, and they had like copper pieces like folded around the CD cases, and they all like pissed on it, so it made like the copper all fucked up. I don't know, like that's crazy too.
Well, I vibed with those guys because I was like into like the witchcraft stuff, and you know what I mean. And not a lot of my friends were into that kind of stuff except for them. You know what I mean?
Okay, let's intersect there because the witchcraft stuff was early on with you, but also can we talk about your mom? Is that okay? R.I.P. Like she was like she got you hip to all that shit, right?
She did, yeah. I was always growing up as a little kid, she had a lot of books and stuff. She hid some of them in her closet, but yeah, she had a lot of books that were like, kind of like Egyptian magic, others you know what I mean, like black magic and some stuff like that. So I was always kind of like looking at these books as a little kid, and when I was kind of like getting puberty era, she would come home and like she would have this stuff written on her shoes and stuff, and I'd be like, what the hell is that, or whatever. And she's like, oh, there's a guy at work that I'm trying to entice, and there are spells.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's weird stuff like that. So she definitely like was turning me on to that, and would talk to me about different ways to protect yourself spiritually, and she always thought Anton LaVey was really sexy, and would tell me about Anton LaVey before I knew what Satanism was and stuff. And so I kind of like got hip to that. And she was always watching fucking cool, weird, witchy movies when I was a kid, like when VHS was a thing.
So would she consider herself like what would she call her?
She would call herself a witch.
A witch.
Yeah, she would say I'm a witch. 100%.
And I love her. She's so I think she was so cool. Every
Yeah.
time I hung out with her,
she would come to gigs and stuff.
She was so
she's seen
cool.
Struggle, and she would come and like take photos.
Yeah.
And, we all like hung out at my house. So I had we practiced at my house for a long time and stuff. And so Grant Raniero lived at my house, my childhood home and stuff. So it was kind of a place. And she was, she knew all of my friends. She always told Mac had dreadlocks at the time. Remember that when he had the like little bob dreadlock? She was always telling, and Ika, anyone who friends I had dreadlocks, she would tell them to cut their hair.
Yeah.
She always was like, cut your hair.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, she was a witch, and she kind of got me hip to that. A lot of times with like the Jehovah's Witness or the Mormons would come to the door, she would like invite them in and debate with them.
Oh,
and
yeah,
stuff
yeah.
all the time, and it was kind of annoying to me. But now I kind of get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's pretty rad.
Yeah. Because they're usually kids, you know what I mean?
Oh,
like they only know what they know.
Yeah, and you just start fucking...
And you have this like fucking 40-something-year-old woman like, schooling their ass. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And maybe it derailed them from the path they were on. Hopefully.
Maybe.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Well, what would be the right? I was gonna say like bless her, but I don't know if that's appropriate. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she died 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Here in San Diego. Yeah, she had a long life.
Yeah.
She lived it to the fullest.
She was like one of the moms. We were just.
She was one of the
she's
moms.
Fucking
in the
cool,
scene.
dude.
Yeah,
For
for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so, man, there's all these sort of interjections. Maybe you can get us to the point of, because we have, the Satanism is there, the drug use is there, and then did you enlist right around that time?
Okay, so if we want to talk about the wars. All right, so I was living in New York, like I said, and I moved 2000 to San Francisco, and by then I was like definitely like on drugs, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like on and off. I was never like the junkie in the street kind of thing, but I definitely glamorized heroin, and you know what I mean? I was on that, and 9/11 happened, and I was still kind of, and when that happened, a person that I was playing in a band with in New York had died because he worked in World Trade Center. So, watching that on 9/11 that morning, it affected me. I mean, I think it affected anyone who understood what was happening. I don't know how you feel, but it definitely affected me in a way. I was like, whoa, this is something that an emotion I've never felt before. I knew that I had a friend that worked there, because I used to go visit him when I lived in New York. Didn't know what was what, and it was soon after that where I decided to I was like, all right, enough of the drugs, you know what I mean? I got on methadone, which is like a kind of a 2-year process. You're on it for a year to just kind of get you away from the drugs, which worked, and then you're tapering off of it for a year. So, you know what I mean? It's like and it's funny, my drug counselor at the time when I first went in there, he kind of explained the whole scenario to me. I look up on the wall and there's like a fucking sick Johnny Thunders poster. I was like, whoa, like rad poster, man. And he was like, yeah, man. He's like, I used to play in punk bands and stuff. I just thought, whatever, you know what I mean? People just say that. And I was like, cool. He was like, you ever heard of Crime?
Whoa.
And I'm in San Francisco, and like, yeah, they're the fucking. He was like, yeah, I'm Johnny, the guitar player of Crime.
Holy shit.
My fucking drug counselor. So that was a motivating factor too.
Like your sponsor or your
no,
drug...
like you go in there, he works there. He's the guy. He's
yeah.
all right, here's the program you're going to be on. I'm going to be monitoring you, blah, 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 blah.
What the fuck?
Yeah, so it was definitely a good motivating factor where it's like, I'm not going to let Johnny from Crime. You know what I mean? Like, this guy is like one of my heroes, all right? So I did that. That took a good 2 years. But while I was in recovery, I wasn't going out. You know what I mean? I wasn't drinking. I wasn't going to any shows or anything. I was kind of just sort of hiding out and just like... and at the time, I didn't even think about why I was like living like a hermit. You know what I mean? But I was reading a lot of books about like Vietnam and stuff like that. Back, you know what I mean? Like that's all they kind of really had. Like I would go in Barnes and Noble and I'd buy a book and read it that day or whatever. And I was getting kind of like, I was pissed, dude, about 9/11. I don't know why. I was never, you know, I never cared about like America or you know what I mean, anything. I was like, I don't care about politics, you know. And but I was kind of like, oh, like what happened is still kind of affecting me. And then and I was like, I think I kind of want to like have my life be different for a minute. You know what I mean? Like, and maybe have this adventure and maybe like change the way that I feel these emotions that I'm feeling because of my friend dying and what happened during 9/11, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's definitely a generational thing, but that inspired me to enlist in the army and, you know, to want to be an infantryman and experience this, you know, war. And that was definitely a surreal moment. It wasn't then though. I think at the time it just seemed like the natural thing to do. Thinking about it right now, I'm like, that was fucking weird. You know what I mean?
You couldn't have done that's like the most drastic thing. I
Yeah.
think, from being in a punk band and on drugs going to the military.
Totally. Yeah. And I mean, I wouldn't do that now. I don't know what I was really thinking then, but I definitely wanted to get away from where my life was then, and I did have those lingering emotions of like wanting to experience war for whatever reason.
Wow.
So I enlisted. It was a while before, you know, I could go off for training because, you know, I was still on methadone. Then I got off of it successfully. Never did heroin again. And went off to training, and that was before the Iraq War. So I was, you know, when you're training, you watch TV, you don't see the news. You know what I mean? You're totally isolated from the world. So it wasn't until like the war started in Iraq that they rolled in this motherfucking cart with a TV, big ass TV on it like they would in school.
Yeah.
And they like turned it on, and it was like, we're going to war with Iraq. You know what I mean? It was like this like new thing. It's like, oh shit, now we're like at war.
So you weren't even like necessarily planning on that. Like you were just like, I'm gonna just get in the military and see what happens.
Nope. Yeah, not at all. And so that was the thing. But you know, everyone's like kind of like pumped or whatever. You know, it's like kind of like the people. It's an interesting experience, the military, for you people who've never been in. But you know, and I can. It's interesting to talk to like some of my friends who are like-minded, like us, who have been in the military.
Oh, sure, yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like, there's like weird understanding there because it's like. You think about growing up in San Diego, surrounded by all these military bases and all this shit. It's like a jock kind of thing or something. Think, oh, it's like jocks and rednecks kind of thing. And then you get in there, you're like, oh wait, these people are like, there's like actually like really interesting people in here too. You know, you do have your rednecks, believe me, and you do have some jocks, but it's mainly kind of like fuck ups and losers, but like in a good way. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but like, and that are.
You're not selling the military.
Well, I was in the army, I was in the Air Force.
Okay.
But it's full of people that are actually like into cool shit and into artistic stuff too. You know what I mean? Like I was really surprised by the amount of like interesting, fucking intelligent people that were in the military for sure. Anyways, graduate from basic training, infantry school, and I am to be stationed at Fort Drum, New York, upstate New York, like near Canada. And literally the day I got there, they're like, I get to my unit, I'm all nervous and like scared. I don't know what to expect, you know. And they're like, "All right, go get your desert uniforms because you're going to Iraq in like a month." So it was like that quick, bam. You know what I mean?
Whoa.
And yeah, and I found myself in Iraq. You know, we had gotten there after the invasion, so it really wasn't a lot happening. I didn't really experience like a lot of combat in Iraq. You know, a lot of what they call incoming fire from mortars, rockets, a couple like direct firefight engagements, but like it was really kind of a policing sort of mission when I was there, for sure, because it was like everything had calmed down, and it wasn't until after I went, you know, came back home that it started to be IED land kind of thing, stuff like that. So that my experience in Iraq wasn't really too crazy. But it was really pretty there.
Wow.
Yeah, kind of reminded me of LA, like palm trees and like
Whoa.
the Euphrates River and the Tigris River. You know what I mean? Like it was like really pretty, and it's like I could picture Iraq in the 70s when it was like really glamorous and built up in this like utopia. You know what I mean? Like, but by then
Palm Springs.
Totally, yeah. But like greener, man, like, you know what I mean?
Wow.
Like along the rivers, which are the two main kind of like hubs of the country, it's like it's all green and farms and stuff.
Wow.
So without the knowledge of what was I mean, I don't know. I don't want to get like, I don't want to, I mean, politically, I mean, there was an
Yes.
agenda from the U.S. to go and
Right.
and become the, you know, police of the world essentially, and
Right.
and then
Or whatever. Yeah, I mean, it was really confusing back then.
which I'm sure you weren't informed upon until like it's always in retrospect too. Or like, oh yeah, this is what was happening.
I mean, you see the news and stuff, and it's like even back then, it's like really hard to like kind of believe politicians. It's hard to believe the news.
But when you were there, like there was the talk of weapons of mass destruction wasn't disproven yet.
I don't know if it was or wasn't. This was still 2003, so I think it was a minute before they were like, oh yeah,
We lied.
yeah. So I think they're
Bush
probably
Cheney were just like still on that tip.
yeah,
so you
yeah.
kinda
So
thought,
I think when I was there, it was still a thing. But that wasn't I wasn't our mission. Our mission was just sort of to like secure this area and try to, you know, make it safe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that was our mission, was like this kind of town just south of Baghdad called Iskandariya, whole area around it. And so we'd just go on patrols and, you know, just make sure shit was like running fairly smoothly. If like, you know, there'd be like firefights of like the cops and Iraqis, and someone would get shot, we would take care of them. You know what I mean? Because we had a little triage, whatever, tent kind of thing. So yeah, that was never really a thing. Pretty much like, I mean, the thing that people don't understand about like war or being a soldier at war is like your main mission is to fucking stay alive. You know what I mean? Like politics and all that stuff, like that's for someone else to think about. Your only mission is to kind of stay alive.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't you, it'd be the next. person.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's like, you know, most of the time when you're at war is spent like hanging out with your buddies and like shooting the shit and fucking around, kind of like if you're like on tour with your band.
Yeah,
it's
sure.
kind of the same vibe, you know what I mean?
But the whole time when like back then when I was like, oh yeah, Aaron's in Iraq, I was like, what the fuck? Like he's gonna get like eaten alive. You know, I just thought you were like this like artsy, you know, weirdo like musician. I'm like, how the fuck is he gonna hang with all these people? But you clearly,
I mean, like I said, there's actually like fucking interesting people embedded in like these weird corners of society, and you know, in the military, there's some really cool, interesting people, and I somehow, you know, I'd never been into sports. I never played fucking anything. I was never like into sports. I never played baseball or whatever. But somehow I was good at being a soldier. Maybe because I'm little, you know, like I could run and I could, you know, I was a little bit older too. That was another thing. I was 27 when I joined, so I was a little more like, I don't know, refined as far as like I could see what was happening. You know what I mean?
yeah.
More than some of these 18-year-olds or something. So I think it made me a better soldier.
So from that point to the, I mean, I don't want to give it too much credit, but the Vice article with Zach.
Yeah.
I mean, how what happened in between that? Because that interview was like you kind of coming back
Right.
And being
So-
like, oh shit.
Yeah, so I did that, and then I fought in Afghanistan for a year and a half, and that was
So Iraq, Afghanistan, and then the whole interview
yes,
thing happened.
yeah.
Okay.
And then I that was, and it was maybe a year or two. No, it was a few years, but that was still after for a while after getting out of the military, I still was tripping. You know what I mean? I'd
PTSD stuff.
Yeah, totally. I would, or whatever. But I would be looking. I'd be like, oh, that would be a good place for a sniper to, you know what I mean?
That's
Stuff like that,
fucking
where I
crazy,
was
yeah.
always kind of on guard.
Wow.
In this way that I, never had before, because I was in war zones for 2.5 fucking years. You know what I mean? Where it's at any second, shit could pop off, or you know what I mean? And I saw that happen, and it happened a lot. You know what I mean? I saw people get killed and shot, and you know what I mean? It does something to you, man, and. Definitely so Zach.
Do you know if you knew all this,
Yeah.
would you have enlisted still?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. I mean, I think I like the person that I am, and I don't think I think I would be a different person if I hadn't. You know what I mean? It made me see the world a lot differently than I probably would have, and I think that that I enjoy. That experience for what it was. It sucked. You know what I mean? A lot of it, most of it sucked. But
And I think it's safe to say it was for the wrong reasons. We shouldn't have been at war. Period.
I don't. Who knows what what's real, what's not real? Iraq was a waste of time and a waste of a lot of fucking money, from my perspective, from being there. Afghanistan is a little more. There's a little more involved, a little more confusing. You never know, the people that you're fighting in that war was actually the enemy, or if it was just people being paid by somebody. You know what I mean? You never really know, because you're never hearing the truth. You know what I mean? The truth is a very strange thing when it comes to situations of politics and stuff like war. You know what I mean? So Afghanistan, I don't know. Iraq, I would say that was a waste of money and a waste of time, and you know what I mean. People are dead because of it, and But as far as saying war is it's obviously it's kind of human nature. Unfortunately, it's one of the things that comes with being human. Is it fucking happens. There's always been a war happening in the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's never not been.
Yeah.
Even if we're at it during peacetime, there's how many wars going on right now?
Oh yeah.
There's probably 10 or 11 active wars happening right now in the world.
I mean, and to an extent, there's beyond the financial aspect of it, because I mean we're funding all the wars, so that's my personal opinion. So I see why we would. There's many reasons why we invaded Iraq. Anyhow, I think that it's interesting to see someone's perspective on it that I think isn't the people that I assume are the enlisted. The how you're saying there's smart and interesting people. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I was just
you would. I was surprised. You would be surprised.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was kind of actually taken aback by. I was like, oh, there's actually some people in here that I can relate to other than this stuff that we're learning. You know what I mean?
Well, okay, so then Iraq, Afghanistan, and then you were out.
Yeah. No, I got it. I was like the last half of my deployment to Afghanistan, I wanted to get the fuck out. I was getting scared. You know what I mean? I was like, I'm gonna die here. It was that rough. Yeah, it was definitely gun battles daily. People getting shot, rockets. It was nonstop, and it was they called it, because I went to see a doctor, and I was like, yo, dude, is there any way I can get the fuck out of here? And he was like, oh, you just have, what did he call it? Battle fatigue. He called it battle fatigue. And I was like, what does that mean? You know what I mean? It's oh, I'm just scared shitless that I'm gonna fucking die. You know what I mean? So I was ready to get the fuck out, and also because I wanted to get back to my life.
Yeah.
This was sort of, I always saw it, even when I enlisted, it was a detour to just sort of get my life kind of reset or something. And I wanted to get back to making music and doing art, because when you're in the military full time, it's there's really no space in your brain for that, or there wasn't for me. You know what I mean?
Especially the later part where you were just worried about surviving.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was sitting on a fucking hilltop, you know what I mean, for a year and a half, getting stung by goddamn scorpions and like getting shot at, you know what I mean? Like, but yeah, I just wanted to get back to my normal life. Ended up getting out and moving to Portland, Oregon, and pretty much started a band right away.
Yeah.
Was very gung-ho about putting myself out there as an artist, you know what I mean? And, you know, was off the drugs and feeling good. And it was a very positive experience for me getting out of that situation.
Of course. So what was that band?
DBC. This was with Mac from Antioch Arrow. Yeah. Sam Ott, who's another San Diegan. Yeah. And then kind of like a couple other people, Mark Burden and yeah. And so that was a cool kind of like Roxy Music Suicide kind of thing that we did for a number of years. And I think that's maybe around the time. And I did an interview with Zach, just kind of about my life, sort of like this kind of thing or whatever. And that was in Vice, 2-part article. And yeah, and that was, you know, a good 9 years of my life was up there and doing that
in Portland. So the Vice thing was interesting because I knew Zach and I knew you very well, and so I could read it and hear the nuance in your and the candidness or I could hear your personalities where I think like maybe other people might not have been able to grab that.
Right.
Which is interesting because that article came out in 2013,
something like that. Yeah,
it's been out for a while.
Yeah,
and it's now being brought up again, and you're like, what the fuck happened? It's been there for however long.
Right. Well, yeah. You know, we're in a different time now where people are a lot more sensitive to that kind of stuff, and kind of I think people kind of forget where we were in the aughts or whatever as a culture, American culture. You know what I mean?
Well, the one thing that stuck out to me from the article was you talking about the dark arts and about how that saved your life. And I thought that was a very interesting, like, I know you and I was like, oh, it's just him being like artsy and like saying something edgy or weird or whatever. But I think you actually really feel that way.
Yeah. I mean, especially Afghanistan, I was definitely like, people call it prayer, whatever, like, you know, people pray to different gods or whatever, you know what I mean? I have mine, and I was definitely doing a lot of that. And protection spells, amulets that I would just make, you know what I mean? With rocks and stuff like that. I definitely, like, did anything I could over there to protect myself spiritually, putting this, like, bubble around me.
But this spiritual, like, element was stuff that your mom gave to you, right?
Yes, a lot of it. Yes, protection. Wow. And you know, I would talk to my mom whenever I could, and she would definitely be like, "Don't forget, you know, to practice things that I taught you and stuff." And I would be like, "Roger, Mom," you know.
Yeah. Were people there tripping out? Like, what the fuck are you doing?
No, because mostly it was private. I did have another friend, one of my buddies, who was also into like witchcraft, Satanism specifically. And so he got it for sure. You know what I mean? He wasn't practicing as much as me over there, but not really. You know, I was really, and I still to this day am pretty private about that kind of stuff because, you know, I've learned through the years that a lot of people think it's kind of corny and hokey, and it kind of is. You know what I mean? But it's like it's just like it's what I turn to like when I need to, or you know, with like if I want something or if I need something or if, you know, it's I turn to that, you know.
It's so strange because I am an atheist and I'm also anti-government and U.S. government and military, but I feel like maybe it was different back then, but I feel like if I was, this is me projecting, but I feel like if I was you, I would be more comfortable talking about Satanism than the military service, which is kind of a weird thing. Maybe because we come from punk and it's like not, it's that's definitely like looked down upon, the military.
Right.
And so I found that like that article very interesting in the fact that you were like very candid about the military or open or comfortable about the military, and then you're just like, oh, the dark arts, blah blah blah, and then kind of like moved on from it. And I was like, oh, what the fuck? That's crazy. Like I'm interested in that. I want to know what you're, you know. It was just an interesting thing that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I never really thought about it. I'm very private when it comes to that for the most part, but I do have friends that are also interested in that stuff, and we'll have conversations about that. But yeah, I don't really talk about it that much because I mean it's like, do Christians? I guess they do kind of talk about.
Oh, they love talking.
Yeah,
about
they
it.
like talking about it. I'm not trying to convert it. It's my thing, man. You know what I mean? Like it's I do it for me. It's a personal thing. I very much like, it's corny as fuck, but like Anton LaVey is sort of one of my heroes, and it's the '60s when he was doing his writings and creating his brand of Satanism, and it was never for other people, like he taught people, there's no like group, there's no building. I know like, the Satanic Temple, they have a building, I guess. Yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But there's no building. There's
like a
no
headquarters or whatever.
Right. There's no like, get together and stuff. It's sort of a personal way of life or the way you see the world. And I've always just kind of thought of it like that. It's my thing. And like, and also I feel like these spirits that I pray to, and I don't name them because they're mine, and I don't want to share them because if too many people are praying to them, they're not going to pay attention to me.
Interesting. I do see the divide in like the Church of Satan and the Satanic Temple. I mean, Lucian is, he's close friend of ours, and so we kind of get the side of the two things, like how they're both different. So I see what you're saying. I mean, we're like, the practicing of, I mean, he doesn't even really talk about that because I look at the Satanic Temple, TST, as like more of like an activist, like an organization that's doing like, like with the reproductive rights campaign, or there's, I mean, something like just trying to like have inclusivity of all religions in schools, things like that, in politics. So I see that where like I feel Anton LaVey maybe never really was trying to approach it on like a societal level,
Yeah, well, I mean, it was the '60s, man. It was a whole different
yeah.
thing. And I feel like what Lucian's doing, or the Satanic Temple, is it's a modern take on it, less spiritual. I don't really know a lot about, It seems like there's definitely stuff pulled from LaVeyism into the Satanic Temple, but yeah, it seems like it's less of like witchcraft than it is activism, and I think that's cool.
Yeah. So the article came out and it bummed people out recently.
Yeah. So now there's the whole Palestinian-Israel conflict, which is a huge deal. And I feel like, I was on tour with my band, and this person in Chicago or something, anyways, put me on blast, kind of took some of what I said in that article out of context, or maybe just didn't like my candidness in that article, and, labeled me all these things, and it got, the internet did its thing or whatever, and bots were, stressing out record labels and bookers and stuff, and ended up like destroying the band, and so that happened, and it was like really fucking annoying. I happened to be literally dying at the time when I was on tour. I had a heart condition I didn't know about, and I was literally dying. So it was definitely a stressful time to have these people who have never met me, don't know anything about me, just coming at me on the internet while I'm like actually going through life-threatening situations.
Were people coming at you in person though as well?
No, not at all. No, it's all internet stuff.
So the person that you were on tour with didn't bring it up to you, and didn't someone on tour had a problem with you in person or something?
No, not at all.
Oh, weird.
This is all like internet stuff. It's it's.
So the band just decided like we got to stop.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like in the era of the world today, when it comes to music or art, you know what I mean? If there's any money to be made, people get really scared about, getting labeled this or that. And so, record labels get scared, bookers get scared, and they don't know what to do. And so the easiest thing to do is to just like shut it all down,
Wow.
And it's unfortunate because it's literally this like cancel culture is just little by little destroying art and destroying music and stuff. And it's to me, like it's what they're trying to fight against, but they're actually totally becoming the thing that they think they're fighting against.
I don't want to compare them to something of the past, but I do feel like it was like Ebullition and Heart Attack. you know?
Right.
Like kind of just like these gatekeepers, and you have to be this one way, and you can't because like again, when I read the article, I knew you and I knew Zach, and I knew and I could see like, yeah, I'm like, fuck the military. I don't support it. I support you as a person, and I love you as a person. And I think it's crazy that like someone's gonna be like, he said this one off color thing, but his whole life just fuck it, it's gone. Like we can't, have.
Well, that's the thing is like no one that actually knows me feels that way. Like no one that knows me, who's met me, who knows me, like thinks that of me. It's people who don't know me or just like think this thing because they read it on the internet, and they're stupid for doing that,
Yeah, but I mean, a good friend of mine, I don't want to name him, but I when I saw you recently, he was at this festival and he was like, that guy's a fucking Nazi, and I was like, dude, me, man. I don't, because like I wouldn't. Trying to think if I like actually know any Nazi, like a neo-Nazi that I'm like, oh yeah, they're fucking cool, they're my friend. So I was like, oh, weird, no, and I was like, oh, it's crazy. And so I even think like when this podcast comes out, if he sees this, like I hope he can see a different side of it. But it also ties into your tattoo that was like a thing, because I didn't know. I just know you have a bunch of satanic shit or whatever, and so. I remember people like hitting me up right when the Heroin record was being re-released on Southern Lord, and they're like, dude, what's up with your boy? He's a fucking Nazi. And I'm like, what? And so I hit you up, like kind of like feeling lame. And I was like, what's up? Are you a Nazi? I don't know. And then you...
Was that more recently, or was that back then?
It was, you were still doing VR Sex. And, and it was like right when the Heroin record was being reissued. And it's crazy because, for me, like, the band Heroin's a big deal. Yeah. I remember like Sonny K was doing all this stuff with it. Yeah. Like, and obviously like Southern Lord is a fucking great label. And I, like everything involved was like, these are my homies. And then people were like, what's up with this guy? He's your friend. He's also an Antioch. You put the record out. What do you think about this? And I was like, yeah. And I remember like hitting you up and you're like, what the fuck, man? You know me. And I was like, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, so like I've always been into like sigils and magical symbols. My mom had a book, and it was all sigils and magical symbols, and I have a lot of those tattooed on me. One of them is the black sun, which is an old as fuck symbol that means like the center of the earth. So if you back in the day, if you adorn yourself with like a black sun medallion or something like that, it kind of means like the power comes to you. And I never saw it referenced with any Nazi stuff or anything like that ever, until fucking the alt-right stuff during COVID or whatever, the dudes with the torches and shit. It came to my attention. I was like, oh, okay, so they've adopted this symbol. You know what I mean?
Similar to the swastika.
I guess.
Well, Nazis took it from Native Americans.
It's a sun. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, but I meant like they took an image.
Didn't they alter it?
They flipped it, the swastika, but it's still repurposing like this iconic image.
Okay, yeah. So I never saw that in any books. Not that I deep dove into that, but it was never. That's never how I interpreted it until I saw it being interpreted that way, and I was like, this is not like how I want to be perceived, and I got it blasted like immediately, tattooed over.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's been like that for years. People keep and like I've never felt the need to like kind of explain myself to people I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Obviously, you and I go way back.
Yeah.
We're tight friends and stuff. So you know what I mean. I'll tell you about it, but yeah, that was never intended as like some sort of political thing. I've never even really been interested in politics. I've never. And as far as like being like, if people call me a Nazi and stuff, it's stupid.
Yeah, I didn't really know how to...
A warlock? Yes. Like, definitely. Call me a warlock. I'm definitely into magic and stuff like that, but yeah.
That's great.
But yeah, when I saw it being used in that perspective, I was like, fuck this, so.
Huh. But you still had the fallout from it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Of course.
Well, I've never done this. I've never talked about it in public or whatever, just because like, I've never felt the need to do that. Now it's like the article and then all this other internet stuff it destroyed a good rock and roll band, and you know what I mean? Like, so now it's like, okay, like I guess I need to like tell the world that I'm not a Nazi or something,
Yeah. Well, so far I don't think we've had any Nazis on our podcast, so I think I hope you didn't fuck it up.
Well, it's funny because you were just like, let me think if I know any Nazis, and it's like, do I know any?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I mean, when things were different, like when we were growing up, like in our teens and our early 20s, where you could say off-colored things and say fucked up shit, and it really wasn't as like. Now it's like under a microscope. Oh, you fucked up. You're, with cancel culture.
Yeah.
I mean, again, like I was even talking about like people trying to say Def Club is ableist because there's no one deaf in the band. It's like God, you guys are really reaching far. And so like for someone to be like, oh, you have this tattoo, you're a Nazi. I feel like that's just feel like, hey, you have this tattoo that's of this. I don't know, like Rafa from Prayers is a good example. He's got the swastika on his neck the opposite way, the peace symbol, but it's still like probably jarring, and I'm pretty sure he probably gets like people freaking out about it. I feel like people need to just maybe quit pointing the finger when they have three pointing back and just fucking look at the bigger picture.
Right. Well, it's funny because I had a dude who I don't know hit me up. This was like when it all happened a few years ago or whatever.
The heroin.
And I already had the tattoo covered up and everything, and he's like, "Hey man, I hate to bug you. I'm a fan of your music. Da 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 da. I saw this. I'm Jewish. What's up?" Really respectfully, really nicely.
Yeah.
I was like, "What's your phone number?" I called him, and like we're homies now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I was like, "No, dude. Like we grew up in the straight edge hardcore scene. We were wearing like end racism shirts.
Yeah.
At 12, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that was a part of our upbringing. You
Yeah.
know, it was like the racism, sexism. You know, that part of punk culture was when we were young.
Yeah.
And those are ideals that we grew up with.
Sure.
And those are ideals that I know you still live up to. I
Yeah.
do too. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Those are ingrained in us. And you know that too because you grew up in the same scene I did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, you just don't like walk away from those ideals.
No.
They're a part of your upbringing, you know?
That's an interesting thing, so this might be a deep dive here into something that might not be quite relevant, but maybe you remember, like, do you remember the end racism shirts
That's
that everyone
the
had?
shirt I'm talking about.
Yeah,
I had one of those.
but it's so crazy because this just came up in a conversation, and we had John Reese on our episode, and I fucking love John, and I'm bummed that Mike Down passed away.
Yep.
Mike Denny from Amenity, but he was making the shirts and racism, and so there, and it was, John Reese is telling me this story about Mike Down and was saying like how. He was like, oh, it's kind of weird. Like, you're like this sort of like wealthy white guy that's making these in racism shirts, and you're buying like a new car and this and that. But is the money from the shirt going to like helping anything? And Mike Down's like, oh man, like, come on, like, it's fine, And he's like, well, no, like, you're kind of, everyone's on this like tip, and you're like a privileged white dude like making the shirt. And I was like, holy shit, like that is such an interesting perspective that I never thought of. I just thought Mike Down's cool and he made these shirts and he's part of Amenity. And I was like, damn, that's a wild other thing where like kind of saying like, Aaron's got the tattoo, he's a Nazi, blah, we're done, And I'm like, I looked at it like, oh, Mike Down, I'm not trying to fucking say Mike Down was a bad person or is, or his legacy, but I was like, oh, that's crazy. He's like really just a capitalist, not necessarily trying to like help end racism because let's face it, it's just a shirt that says end it. It's not like doing it,
I mean, I feel like, as far as like the punk scene is concerned, I feel like we were the first people to sort of address a lot of that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? I never really, I mean, you saw the like, the Nazi punks fuck off and stuff like that back in the 80s or whatever, but it was definitely taken seriously. Inclusiveness was taken seriously.
Especially in San Diego with
Yes.
White Arm Resistance, the Tom Metzger's Nazi organization. 'Cause
That's here?
That was. I mean,
okay.
that was like in the 90s, like where they'd all go to the Che. It was like, like the Boot Boys and all that. Like they were all part of that
it's funny,
stuff.
like I don't remember seeing skinheads at shows. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention, but yeah.
They were always at the struggle
I know people
shows.
talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
Like there was a big scene. I was like, I missed that.
It was pretty bad for
Really?
sure. Yeah.
Like I never saw people getting punched or anything really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, always. Yeah.
Interesting.
Were you
Anyway,
always in the front row?
What's that?
Were you always in the front row?
I kind of always like to stand off to the side.
Yeah.
Because I always saw the Nazis and all the drunks.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
Che?
pretty. It was the Che or everywhere. It's like you're the Che Cafe and you're a neo-Nazi,
Right.
like fucking beating up 14-year-olds.
Yeah.
I mean, like Bert. Remember Bert?
Bert.
One of the San Diego Boot Boys. Like he fucking beat up everybody. And I remember him like. I remember going and seeing it Inside Out at San Diego State, and he was like, you're fine, but your drummer Jose, he's a fucking faggot, and this and that. I'm like, dude, you're such a, and it's like, and I'm like, he beat me up. Like, I'm like, you already beat me up, dude. I don't want to be your friend now.
Yeah. That was a sick show though, by the way.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, weird time and
Yeah.
But yeah, now it's like the dudes wearing the chinos and stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like I don't want to be friends with, people that are fucked up, but I'm like, I also don't want to be like, get the fuck out of here. I'm not, you're done. I feel like there's maybe a story, or we're not going to connect with anyone or change anyone's mind by just shutting them off. And so,
well, I think the point of like the people that do that, like the person who like put me on blast, it's more, I think, about attention. It's like they're fucking bored. Or like they're not getting like the attention that they want, and so then they're getting all this attention for 5 minutes, you know what I mean, while they're like trying to ruin somebody's life. You know?
I mean, whatever, it's
they're not trying to do good in the world, obviously, because they're creating negativity,
Yeah. Well, I mean, sometimes, cancellation, I think, is obviously warranted.
Sure.
But in a situation like yours, I feel like it just seems bizarre. And all the timing was so bizarre, too, with your health issues. And I was so confused. I was like, he's being canceled, but he's going to die? Like, what the fuck, you know?
Right. Well, she was, definitely putting me on blast for being a soldier, which ended up saving my life, because that's how I have health care, is having been a soldier, which literally days later fucking saved my life,
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But it's weird too, like, not to get too far into that, but like the VA is always having all this pushback, or people are saying like there's no funding, or they don't treat their soldiers, people that were enlisted in the veterans well.
I've had the opposite experience.
Huh.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's a California
literally
thing.
like I have to wake up early tomorrow for like a phone consultation from the VA. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's like almost, and I have other friends that are veterans that have health issues that it's like it's constant. So yeah, my experience has been the opposite.
Wow.
They've taken really good care of me.
So the person that put you on blast, their gripe was you talking about being in the military.
I didn't read all the stuff. I'm not like much of an internet-y, but yeah, I think like my wording in the article was very fast paced and took out of context what I really meant. You know what I mean? Like being like, oh, war was fun. I didn't mean like shooting my guns is fun. It's like being around these dudes is fun, or like, you know what I mean? Like, this experience is fucking wild.
I thought the article was insane. I'll just say that. But what I took away from it was like, really what resonated with me was like, you went and like did all this fucked up shit that in the context of war, which I'm not a fan of, and the only reason you survived is because of your spirituality.
I mean, that definitely didn't hurt. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like that, and it could have been the reason why I say that, because it was pretty hairy there.
You were and I should have reread the whole article. I haven't read it in quite a while. I read it when it came out. And I thought it was fucking interesting that my friend had a cool article with my other friend, whatever. But I had looked at it as like you were put on the front lines, like kind of expendable in a sense, and everyone else you were like working with is getting picked off, and you survived because of.
I mean, probably. You can never say for sure.
No, you can't.
But I tend to think so, that I put my hands in like some sort of greater spiritual, entity, and I came out of it unscathed.
Which is fucking pretty bizarre.
Yeah. I mean, unscathed, like physically.
Yeah, sure.
Definitely, like, you know what I mean? Like, for a while there, I was like having some issues, and I go to therapy, and it's like it will fuck with you for sure.
Yeah. I'm sure you've seen stuff that I don't ever want to see, ever. Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, being a soldier, having been a soldier 20 years ago is not a popular thing to have happened, obviously. And there was other things at play too. The person that like put me on blast like got kicked off the record label I was on, and there's other stuff like, you know what I mean, involved with it too. And it's unfortunate that it happened, and it's unfortunate that these record labels and promoters and bookers feel the need to be scared and try to just shut everything down every time there's like something on the internet that is or not true. In my case, is, I don't feel like is warranted. But yeah, it's unfortunate.
Well,
and it's not going to stop.
What's not going to stop?
Just these record labels that are, or anyone that's in charge of an artist that people like don't like or have a problem with.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean.
But you're not going to stop. You're just going to start some new killer band.
Yeah, for sure. I'm out of a job right now.
All right, so yeah, this will be your like call out to start a band.
I'm ready.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's been. I've led a very fucking weird life for sure. I feel like interesting, and cool. Like you asked if I would change, I wouldn't, because like my life right now, I look at like who I am and what I'm doing, and I love it. Yeah, I've always been a pretty happy person, and I still am. And, I don't let like the small stuff really affect me. And I think definitely like going to war and living in literally the shit has helped with that. I don't try to take things for granted at all. Little things, dude. I couldn't shower. I showered like once a month for over a year and a half. Like now I fucking love showers. I'll take a goddamn long shower. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's great.
So little things like that. And I don't sweat the small stuff as much.
Yeah, I saw this photo of you and your partner and your brother and his partner, and it was such a sweet picture, and you guys look so happy, and your brother's great too. I like him so much. I think it's you're such a unique person and always so positive, and it was just, even when I approached you about like, oh man, they think you're a Nazi, and you were just like, duh, it's cool, you know what's up, like whatever, fuck it, and then again, like when I approached you again with the health stuff, and then your band breaking up, I was just, and you were just like positive about it. I don't know, I'd be so much more fucking devastated.
If my life was shitty, I probably wouldn't, but I have a good life, and I'm surrounded by really good people, and that's why it's like so weird when people are like, oh, he's a piece of shit or whatever. It's kind of like, meet me, dude. Like I'm actually like a pretty chill dude,
I hear I'm a piece of shit a lot of times too, and whatever it is, it's up to the whatever, they can say what they want, but I don't think that of you. We have been friends for so fucking long, and I love seeing you every time. I appreciate you in this world. I appreciate your artistic outcome.
I'm glad that you're still doing, like, a lot of our friends, getting older and like not like involved in art or music and stuff. So yeah, it's definitely like it's nice when like some of your friends that you grew up with are still involved in music and art, and even the friends who aren't, but they're still connected with it, like Marshall or something, you know what I mean? Still coming out to shows or checking in kind of thing is rad.
There you have it. Episode 48. Go ahead.
Again, we want to thank Aaron for being on our podcast, and we hope that you got something out of that. It's a wild world, and humans are complex creatures. So, I don't know. We appreciate you paying attention to our podcast. We appreciate the support. We appreciate our sponsors. We appreciate Andy and Becky for always helping us out. And Ruinous Media for having us be part of this. And I don't know. We appreciate the weird longevity of our world surrounded by punk music, and some of those people end up in the military. But it is what it is. Thank you very much.
Peace.
We'll see you on the next one.
Cult & Culture is a Ruinous Media podcast proudly sponsored by Earthquaker Devices, Heartwork Coffee, Diodario, Kindred, Smashed Plastic Record Pressing, and San Diego Food Shed.
Planet B.